This is second part of I found my cheating wife's darkest videos, sold them, got rich, and started living a happier life, so let's start. Mary proved to be an excellent dining companion. And for the next hour, she helped me forget my troubles. On our return, we heard Ted cheering as we entered the office. He was in high spirits, doing a little victory dance at his desk. "These recordings are a game changer, Bobby. I can't believe it," he exclaimed. My expression turned bittersweet, and I think he finally grasped why. "Oh, Bobby, I'm truly sorry I didn't acknowledge the significance of these videos. I know Sue's actions have deeply hurt you. I was just excited about what I uncovered," he apologized sincerely. "Bobby, come over here. I need your eyes on something." "Get back in me," and I complied, positioning myself behind him to view his screen. "Did you watch the entire video Tony shot at the tennis club with Sue?" he inquired. "No, I only managed to skim through some of it last night. It was tough to stomach without feeling the urge to lash out, or worse," I admitted honestly. "Well, brace yourself. Toward the end, just after Tony and Sue finish, they attract a small crowd in the men's locker room. Yes, the tennis club's locker room. I hate to say it, but she let the other men who were watching join in after Tony. I'm not telling you this to upset you, but to shed light on this guy right here," Ted explained, pointing at the screen on his desk. The individual he was indicating was an older man draped in a towel with his long gray hair and a walrus-like mustache. He asked if I recognized him. Ted hit play on the video when I saw him discard the towel, revealing a substantial package any man would boast about. The issue was he went straight to my wife and engaged in cohesion with her. The next moment she was surrounded by 5 more men eagerly awaiting their turn. I recounted, "Ted, I have no clue who this guy is, but I presume you do." I responded, trying to maintain composure. "Bobby, this is ammunition for our meeting today at the tennis club at 4 p.m., he informed me, his excitement palpable as he explained his strategy. I grinned when I heard his plan. Besides being my friend, Ted was an exceptional lawyer. I was relieved to have him on my side this time. We departed his office for downtown, armed with a portable DVD player, some printed photographs, and legal envelopes. Upon arrival at Sue's building, we proceeded to Bill Evans's office on the top floor, with Sue's office located 1 floor below. After waiting in the reception area, we were eventually ushered into Mr. Evans's lavishly furnished office. Just before entering, I sensed someone observing me from the hallway. I glanced in that direction and caught a glimpse of a woman before she vanished around the corner. Guess who, I thought to myself, relieved I wouldn't have to confront her today. We stepped into Bill's office, adorned with opulent furniture and plaques, awards and photos of him with various notable figures. The thought crossed my mind. Had he ever brought Sue here? At that moment my disdain for Mr. Evans intensified more than ever. I introduced Ted and took the lead in the conversation. "Hello, Mr. Evans, this is my friend Tedworth, and he'll be joining us for the meeting you scheduled today," I informed Bill as we exchanged handshakes. "Mr. Thomas Bob, I thought this was meant to be a private meeting between you and me?" Mr. Evans inquired. "Well, I decided to bring Ted along. Anything you have to say to me you can say to him as well," I stated firmly, without opening it up for discussion. He accepted Ted's presence and directed his remarks solely at me, disregarding Ted. This brought a smile to Ted's face. I anticipated what was coming next but allowed Mr. Evans to speak first before we burst his bubble. "Bob, may I call you Bob?" Bill asked. "Absolutely no issues. In fact, I thought it might be beneficial to have Jeff Davis present at this meeting too. I'm not sure if it's feasible, but it concerns him as well," I informed Mr. Evans. After a brief pause, he pressed the intercom button. "Julie informed Jeff that I require his presence in my office immediately. Tell him to drop everything and come here right away." "Understood. Jeff will be here shortly. In the meantime, I want to express my sincere apologies for the trouble caused by Jeff and Sue in your life. I know last night must have been awful, but if we collaborate, we might be able to find a solution beneficial to all parties, Bill expressed optimistically. What exactly do you mean, Mr. Evans? I inquired, waiting for Jeff's arrival. I genuinely care for your wife Sue, Bill began, but was interrupted by Jeff's entrance. He hesitated momentarily, appearing as though he might turn and leave. But Bill instructed him to take a seat. Constantly Jeff complied, avoiding eye contact with me. Bob, I wanted to convey that I have great affection for Sue, almost like a daughter, Bill started to speak when Ted interjected. Are you implying you have a penchant for incest, Mr. Evans? Ted asked, catching him off guard. I chuckled to myself, understanding the intent behind Ted's remark. What? What are you suggesting? Do I have a fondness for incest? What on earth does that mean? He retorted with indignation. Well, allow me to illustrate. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, Ted stated, placing the DVD player on Bill's desk. These are screenshots from the video you're about to watch. He handed them to Jeff, not Bill. Jeff's eyes widened, and he passed them slowly to Bill. The images depicted Bill and Jeff both involved with my wife, leaving no room for doubt about their identities or actions. I even suspected Bill recognized his own boardroom table where he and Sue had engaged in their activities. Jeff, are you seriously telling me that you were foolish enough to record this on video and distribute copies? Bill queried, nearly speechless. It was evident that Jeff was currently unable to provide a response and appeared completely dumbfounded. Well, Mr. Evans, here's how it's going to unfold. Oh, and just to clarify, I'm Bobby's attorney as well as his friend, so let me outline what we expect and how we expect you to address it. Ted informed the shocked audience, thoroughly relishing the moment. Firstly, Sue retains her position without question. Bobby believes she'll require employment, and she seems to fit in quite well with everyone here. He directed this statement to Bill, accompanied by a subtle wink. Secondly, Mr. Davis is no longer part of the equation here. Sue stays and he exits. Ted declared to Bill, gesturing toward the flabbergasted Jeff. Thirdly, we expect you to present us with a monetary offer that respects our intelligence. We'll entertain your initial proposal and provide a yes or no response within 5 business days. We anticipate taking legal action within 2 months, possibly sooner if necessary. Before they could interject, Ted initiated the video playback, swiveling the screen for Bill's viewing. It depicted both men engaging in carnal acts with my wife, repetitively, in their boardroom. Jeff didn't need to watch given his involvement in the video recording. Bill simply observed, with his mouth agape. I could sense his mind working overtime, contemplating how to salvage his business, reputation, family life, and, most importantly, finances. I knew action would be imminent. Jeff, after these gentlemen depart today, we'll need to have a serious discussion about your future employment here. I'll consult with my legal counsel to negotiate a settlement that satisfies you to some extent. You both comprehend the potential repercussions for our business if this information were to surface prematurely. Bill mused aloud. Fred, Mr. Evans, will maintain your confidentiality until we receive a serious proposal from you. However, I wouldn't rush to terminate Mr. Davis's employment just yet. He may possess additional copies of the video, providing him with leverage if we fail to act. You and Mr. Davis can address this matter independently. Oh, and just so you're aware, both of you could face legal consequences for engaging in relations with an employee directly impacting your employment status and prospects, Ted cautioned them as we both rose to depart. It reclaimed the DVD player and the photographs we had brought along. We exited just as Bill and Jeff seemed poised for a private discussion. I approached Ted with a query, but he gestured for silence until we were outside. I hadn't noticed my wife lurking around the corner, attempting to eavesdrop on our conversation. But Ted had. The last thing I heard was Mr. Evans barking into Julie's intercom. Get Satomas here immediately. I grinned, anticipating an intriguing encounter. Bill would soon discover that I had found his DVD in our home. Once outside, I inquired why he had given Jeff an escape route by suggesting he used his own videotape against Bill. Divide and conquer, as they say, Ted explained. It's better if they don't act as a united front, but rather each for themselves. That way, if Bill makes a half-hearted offer to us, we can play them against each other. Ted also noted wisely that Jeff and Bill have families and attend church. Despite their behavior depicted in the videotapes, they're not keen on rocking the familial boat at present. As I departed the building, I realized it would now be remembered as the site where my wife betrayed me, rather than the esteemed workplace she once inhabited. It saddened me to think about. Ted's words snapped me back to reality. All right, let's grab a beer before our next rendezvous at the tennis club at 4 p.m. We could both use a drink right now, and there's something I need to discuss with you, though. I'm not quite sure how yet, Ted mentioned, as we drove across town toward the tennis club. He stopped at a quaint bar restaurant adjacent to the tennis club. Ted ordered 2 beers and began speaking to me. Bobby, I believe Bill Evans will extend an offer, but likely for just under $1 million. I'm familiar with his legal team from another case, and they're quite adept. He's also a realist. I'll call him tomorrow and convey that a lowball offer won't bode well for his clients' business or personal life. I'll propose around $3 million or suggest we abandon negotiations altogether, he disclosed. Furthermore, I need to ascertain if, in the event the offer is rejected, I have your authorization to cast Susan in an unfavorable light. I won't hold back for anything. My duty as your legal representative is to pursue what ensures victory in court, even if it entails painting an unflattering portrait of her. It might get ugly and highly publicized. I'll utilize every legal means at my disposal to secure our case. You might not appreciate all the potentially damning revelations about Sue, your marriage, and even your carnal life that could surface. I'm not sure if you've considered this aspect, Ted added at the 11th hour. I expressed that I had given serious consideration to the matter and believed I possessed more integrity than they gave me credit for. I mentioned that, if necessary, I was willing to proceed, but I preferred to explore the financial offer route first, which I hinted at to Ted. Ted agreed and suggested starting by evaluating what Bill had to offer. He assured me that if Bill's offer was unsatisfactory, he would handle all the necessary paperwork promptly. Additionally, he mentioned leveraging his newspaper contacts and friends at 3 local news stations. He said they would be willing to obtain footage and images, even if they needed to censor the explicit content with blue bars, as they say in sitcoms. Ted, you've consistently been there for me, and I trust your judgment. I just wish this whole mess never happened. Being an oblivious husband was more enjoyable than being publicly humiliated by a cheating wife. Nevertheless, you have my authorization to take whatever actions are necessary. After all, I didn't initiate this debacle, but I'm determined to conclude it soon. I expressed with frustration in my voice. Understood, Bobby. No problem. Now, let's discuss the material for our next meeting. This guy, Mr. Harry Ryle, is the owner of the Ace Tennis Club. This is the guy I pointed out in the video in my office. He's indicated that he'll likely adopt a laissez-faire attitude, asserting that adults will be adults, and he won't intervene. Even Tony's tennis coach might be dismissed for appearance's sake, only to be rehired later. Tony's quite popular at the club, particularly among female members. Keep in mind, Bobby, that while men primarily pay club dues, women are also stakeholders. This dynamic will be pivotal in your interaction with Mr. Ryle. He briefed me on the situation. We arrived just in time, and it was evident that Mr. Ryle and Ted didn't see eye to eye. Their animosity was palpable from the outset. Mr. Ryle, this is Bob Thomas, Ted said, nodding in my direction. His wife is a member of your club. It has come to our attention that Tony Simba, your tennis instructor, was having an affair with Mr. Thomas's wife. We want to know what you plan to do about this, Ted finished. He waited for Ryle to speak, but even I knew that he would take everything upon himself. And, in a few words, send Ted to hell. Listen, what two consenting adults do behind closed doors in their own time is none of my business, Ryle informed us. And as for you, Mr. Thomas, if you can't satisfy your wife in the bedroom, don't come crying to me and blaming me if she strays. There are plenty of unhappy spouses who frequent the Ace Tennis Club. Some keep returning for the personalized attention my staff provides them. If you catch my drift, Harry said, winking at me. I felt the urge to lash out at him, but Ted restrained my wrist and quietly advised me to stay composed and follow his lead. You see, Harry, you're assuming this occurred outside the club without the owner's knowledge and consent. It's presumptuous of you to make such assumptions. Ted confronted him, pulling out a DVD player and placing it on his desk. Ted pressed play, directing the screen toward Harry. It was evident from his reaction that he didn't like what he saw in the video footage. Before Harry could respond, Ted interjected, Harry, you with full awareness and with your colleague's complicity took advantage of a paying member of your club. Mrs. Susan Thomas, a married woman whose dues were paid by Mr. Thomas, is now a dissatisfied customer, Ted informed the silent Mr. Real. When this information surfaces, every dues-paying man will want to know if his wife is engaging in similar activities while he puts the bill. I'll have to subpoena everyone present in the locker room that day. Married men may not be pleased with you about this, Ted added, adopting an almost storytelling tone. Furthermore, there's the issue of reasonable expectation of privacy when filming in the locker room. Harry, once I'm through with you, your club won't retain its community reputation and your bank account may suffer as well, Ted asserted for added persuasion. So here's what we're after, a substantial offer from you and prompt action. Doing so could spare you considerable inconvenience and financial loss, Ted concluded, as we observed Harry Ryle weighing his options. Ted, you're still a real piece of work, but I can't argue with you reasoning. I'll contact you tomorrow with my offer. If I comply, all tapes will be returned to me and remain confidential. I'll also willingly terminate Tony's employment. Now if that's all you legal extortionists came for, get the hell out, Harry Ryle dismissed us as Ted retrieved the DVD player with a grin and powered it off. Oh, and say hi to Tito Martin, Ted remarked to Harry before exiting the room. Go to hell, Worth, was all Harry could retort. Ted chuckled all the way back to the parking lot. That was quite the adventure. Now we wait for suggestions, Ted informed me as we headed to his house for a delightful homemade dinner. By week's end, Bill Evans had offered nearly $2.7 million to retain Sue as his employee. Jeff Davis, after naively handing over all his tapes to Bill Evans, found himself out of a job. Bill simply terminated him, leaving poor Jeff with little recourse. I went after the two fools who were with my wife the night I caught her with Jeff. They happened to be two of Jeff's major clients. Neither of them wanted any publicity, whether for their companies or themselves. So each of them offered me $1 million to keep quiet. Harry Ryle refused to make any offer and suggested we take legal action. So we did, and he ended up losing $3 million by the time we were done with him. His club suffered a mass exodus of members, and he was compelled to relinquish ownership. He likely thought he could evade consequences, but the judge wasn't impressed with the footage from the private locker rooms, nor with the infidelity. I granted Sue a house and a car as she desired, without having to pay a cent in child support. I only encountered her twice in court, both times I greeted her as a trumpet which brought her to tears. I often pondered why she cried now, but not before causing such turmoil in my life. I came into more money than I ever imagined, thanks to following Ted's advice. The pain still lingered, haunting me to this day. All the trials of that dreadful year rushed back in an instant. I hadn't realized anyone was addressing me until I snapped out of my flashback and heard the restaurant manager inquiring if everything was all right. Unsure how long I had stood there, lost in thought, I shook my head to clear it and returned to the present. Apologies, just reminiscing about an old issue once I saw the group I came to meet. Thanks again, I explained to the manager, noticing the curious glance he gave, reminiscent of how people regard an elderly person lost in memory. I made a beeline for my ex-wife's table. The surprise was evident on her face when last we were together. I was overweight, with long hair and a beard, nursing an old knee injury from baseball. That was my excuse then, but truthfully I had settled into a complacent life with her. Now I sported a shorter haircut, was trimmed from regular workouts and had my knee repaired. Thanks to the money from Jeff and Bill's company, my suits were now upscale and I made an effort to present well in public. I opted to speak up first. "You look fantastic today's trumpet, almost forgot how stunning you could be," I remarked, intentionally provoking a reaction. I knew exactly how to push her buttons. "My name is Susan Bobby, why can't you address me by my name?" she retorted, clearly irritated. "I didn't label you Stomp It, you know who did, I simply find it fitting. I warned you 3 years ago that you shattered my heart and I'll always remember you by that title," I explained, as the man beside her began to object and rise from his seat. But Sue urged him to remain calm. Tears welled up, smudging her makeup. Her boyfriend interjected, "Go freshen up, Sue, and fix your face. I'll handle this idiot for you." With those words she stood, locking eyes with me as I reciprocated with a single glance, perhaps revealing the agony I'd harbored for 3 years. Her tears flowed harder, surprising me that she still harbored any sentiment toward me. Or perhaps it was lingering guilt, likely a blend of both. "I expect you to be gone when I return," she declared tearfully, heading to the restroom, where I noticed the sizable engagement ring on her finger as she wiped her eyes and left. "You must be Bob Thomas, Sue's ex-husband," he queried with disdain in his tone. "Indeed. And you must be the new man she's been dreaming of," I retorted, sensing his indignation. "I'm Sue's CFO, and if I were you I'd refrain from using that term," he cautioned, though his reluctance to cause a scene was evident. "I only sought to converse with you privately. I have 3 inquiries, then I'll vanish from your life forever," I informed him, noting his quizzical expression. "I've been in your shoes before, and I don't want anyone else to endure my fate, I suppose." The strumpet painted me as a lousy husband. "Abusive, neglectful, or a womanizer," I remarked, knowing precisely what she'd conveyed to him. "But I'm not here to salvage my reputation in your eyes. Honestly, I doubt it would serve any purpose. First off, does Sarah still host her Avon gatherings at her place on Tuesdays and Thursdays?" I inquired. "Sue assists Sarah with her decor sales on Mondays and Wednesdays." "It seems your memory is a bit faulty," he snapped back. "All right then, does she still take tennis lessons on Saturdays?" I pressed. "Sue swings a racket on Sundays. You seem to have a hazy recollection for someone married to her for so long," he remarked triumphantly. "All right, final question. Have you ever checked under the bottom drawer of the dresser in your living room?" I asked hurriedly. "No, why would I even do that?" he protested. "The 3 questions I posed to you are the reasons why we're no longer together. I still have all the leftover divorce paperwork in my office, legal documents, emails from Sarah and the other woman, and hours of videotapes. I've carried these with me for the past 3 years, so I thought you should have them," I explained, retrieving a worn and folded piece of paper from my wallet. "This is what the other woman wrote to Sarah when she inquired about how to get rid of me before I discovered her infidelity. After reading that letter I realized I didn't know her at all and probably still don't. But it all revolves around you," I stated, handing him the paper. However, I knew Sue very well and understood her compulsive habits. She always followed the same routine meticulously, sometimes driving me crazy. I also had a feeling that, even with a new man, she'd stick to her old ways. I elaborated. He seemed hesitant to accept the paper, but curiosity seemed to win out. He reached over and opened the email. I'd carried it for 3 years, occasionally rereading it and striving to better myself, so that no woman would ever write such things about me again. Of all the evidence, that email hit me the hardest, which is why I'd kept it with me. It was the same email I mentioned earlier in my story. Peter read the letter slowly and set it down on the table quickly. He grabbed a pen, scribbled a note on it, and, to my surprise, abruptly left the restaurant. No glance back, no thanks, nothing. His expression remained impassive. I leaned over to see what he had written on the old email. I'll return home shortly. Please wait here and I'll call you in 15 minutes. I need to check under the bottom drawer of my living room dresser. Be right back, Peter. I sensed he'd seen the truth, even if he wasn't thrilled about it. Something told me I hit too close to home on all three matters. The email seemed to be the tipping point and he needed to verify it himself. Leaving a note on Sue's table, I departed. There was no way I'd stay in that restaurant with anyone tonight. Back in the foyer, I phoned my client, who didn't mind rescheduling the meeting since they were running late anyway. Before leaving, I glanced once more at the table. Sue returned, searching for Peter, sitting down. She noticed her old email and Peter's note below. Her face drained of color as she recognized the contents of her old email and Peter's message. The last time I saw my wife, she was sobbing so intensely that the entire restaurant turned to look. I felt a pang of pity, but at the same time I was indifferent. That was the final encounter with her. I still wonder if Peter found something under the dresser drawer. Sue's tears indicated he might have. Thanks for coming and listening. I hope we will meet in next one story.